it down so nicely when people stood up in the front of the room for that. Thank you all for being here today. I'm incredibly excited about this. I'll call it an event because I really think that it is.
Yeah.
So Jason added not only being a counseling and human resource development student under his belt, but now author. So in the last, I would say, few months, I have been privy to the fact that this book was coming out this summer, with a couple of office stop-bys by Jason to share the excitement, the development, sometimes the setbacks, but there weren't too many. Shared about the podcast, shared with the different faculty and staff here at SDSU that provided feedback. I don't know, Bree in the back, shared about Bree's support, his wife in the back there, with helping him get to the finish line of the book, and couldn't be more proud and impressed. I have to tell you, one of my favorites is the Don't Forget to Remember. So I don't know if you're going to talk about it today, but I try to run. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I try to, wait, how does it go? I try.
You don't forget to remember.
Don't forget to remember how good it feels once you accomplish something.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I leave my house to go for a run, it's not my most favorite thing to do, but I have to remember how good it feels at that sense of accomplishment. So that was one of the rules that really stuck out in the book. So good. With that, I'll turn it over to Jason, but thank you all for being here, and I'm so excited for you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Caravan. Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Go ahead. All right. Phone is off, laptop's on, all the stuff. We're recording, we're unmuted. Okay, perfect. Well, hello, everyone. Many of you know me already, but I'd like to introduce myself to those of you I haven't had the privilege of meeting yet. My name is Jason Van Dyke. I'm in my second year of the Marriage and Family Counseling program, and this summer I published my first book, Rules for My Life, The Beginner's Guide to Living a Life You Love. Now, you might be thinking that this presentation is about the book and all that stuff, and it is. But before we dive in, I need to let you in on a little secret. I can read your minds. And though this presentation may be about the book, the thing you're all thinking is this. I guess that's kind of cool, but why should I care? Well, I'm glad you mentally asked that question. Today. But first, I need to explain a little bit more about myself. So I grew up in a small rural farming community in Minnesota. Office, elevator, bar. That's it. But hey, that's small town Midwest for you, am I right? My family consisted of my parents, my sister, and myself. This is the latest family photo of all of us together. I graduated from a high school class of 38 students, the largest in the school, thank you very much. And between high school graduation and freshman year of college, I experienced what is known as a spontaneous pneumothorax. Out of nowhere, my lung collapsed. But that's why they call it spontaneous. So after a few days and a couple of surgeries, I was out of the hospital and on to college. I attended Northwestern College in Orange City, Iowa for computer science. Now, I'd like to think that my undergraduate experience was fairly typical. I lived in the dorms, gained friends, lost friends, got involved with campus organizations and ensembles, went through my classes, and then I graduated. After graduation, I took a job with General Motors based in Atlanta, Georgia. Yes, that General Motors. And it was a software development job based away from their main headquarters in Michigan. So in May of 2021, I moved down to Atlanta, 23 hours away from my family. I decided to move in with a coworker of mine, a young man who lived, believed, and voted in almost the exact opposite way as me. The only things we really shared were that we, one, worked at the same company, and two, could have mature conversations in which we frequently said, "I see why you think that. I disagree, but I understand where you're coming from." And that turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life because we had so many good conversations that shaped who I am today. Now, not only was I stretched personally by living with my roommate, but I was also stretched in my leadership abilities as I got involved with the college ministry at my church down there called The Living Room. I found that I have a passion for working with college students and other young adults because in settings like The Living Room, I get to share parts of my story and help them do better than I did. So I lived in Atlanta for about 9 months until I decided, I guess I kind of missed the Midwest, and I decided to move back. So I got a job in Sioux Falls, moved back, and eventually married my college sweetheart in October of 2023. Aww. Yeah, it was kind of cute. Until I had a stroke that following November. We actually celebrated our 1-month anniversary in my hospital room, and we celebrated our 2-year anniversary yesterday. So, thank you. So a few days and 0 surgeries later this time, I was out of the hospital and headed home, but it wasn't for a few more months until I felt like I had fully recovered. So by this time, right around March of 2024, I began looking at switching careers from software development to counseling, and I found this program. I promptly applied, and I say it was prompt because I discovered this program the day before the application deadline, so I had to fill out the entire thing in 1 day. And then I interviewed, and I was accepted. A very big shout out to Dr. Ramza and Dr. Hande Britick for being a very important part of my journey. All right, I'll pick up the pace a little bit. So I do the grad school thing in the fall of 24, get my feet under me, finish my classes, and in the meantime, I'm thinking, what am I gonna do with my life after this? I mean, counsel people, obviously, but what would that look like? Agency work, group practice, private practice? Wait, do I need a doctorate for that? Should I get a doctorate? Oh, a doctorate only helps if you want to teach or write? Okay, cool. I don't really feel pulled toward academia, but do I want to write? What do I even write about? You know, I think I have an idea. So once my first semester ends, I start writing. It's the kind of book where the first few chapters present a problem based on research, and then the rest of the book is my opinion on what you should do about said problem. But that is a pretty tough book to write. It involves all this research and like actually being able to form a coherent argument, which after the stroke. So a few weeks go by and I make slow progress on the book. And then I get the idea for a second book. As it turns out, writing a real self-help book is really hard. And so what do I decide to do instead? Write about my life. Seems easy enough. So I start the second book in January of 2025, finish it in March, spend the next few months editing and revising it with the help of some friends of mine and colleagues here at the university, and get it published in July of 2025. And that brings us to I'm sorry. Let me just bring up my checklist real quick. Say hi, check. Share my story, check. Convince everyone I lost my kids. Did I do that? Check. All right, tell everyone. Right, back to that question at the beginning of the presentation. That's kind of cool, but why should I care? All right, talk about that now. So you should care because if there's one thing I want from sharing my story, I want you guys to do better than I did. 5 years of my life living haphazardly, just doing what I wanted with no real plan or purpose behind my life's direction. And I spent the following 5 years living intentionally. And let me tell you, intentionality is the way to go. So as much as is possible, I want you guys to live lives that you love rather than go through difficult situations caused by haphazard living and learning all of your lessons the hard way like I did. And that's what my book is for. This book is a summation of the past decade of my life, neatly packaged for you in 115 pages. For those of you who haven't listened to it, the audiobook isn't even 2 hours long. 10 years packaged into under 2 hours. Talk about showing the highlight reel, am I right? But speaking of highlight reel, my life hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows, and there are a few bits of my story that I left out. So, like I mentioned, actually, if you'll allow me to back up just a little bit. For easy reading, and just because it made logical sense to me, this book is 3 sections: rules for work, rules for relationships, and rules for my soul. Rules for work. These are the rules that help me perform all the tasks and responsibilities in my life in a way that doesn't drain all the life out of me. These are the rules that help me get motivated when I'd rather be lazy. They help me bring order to the chaos around my home or my office, and otherwise just help me perform all the household chores and other work that needs to get done. Rules for relationships. These are the rules that help me make a decision when someone else is involved, regardless of whether that's a classmate, a coworker, family member, or anyone else I interact with. Like I say in the intro to my book, these are the rules that increase love, decrease tension, and make it more pleasant to live with other people, and probably make it more pleasant for other people to live with me. And finally, there's the rules for my soul. These are the rules that help me become a person I actually like. Just like the rules for relationships make it more pleasant for other people to live with me, the rules for my soul make it more pleasant for me to live with me. And that matters because if you're not careful, this world is going to shape you into something you probably don't want to become. Best case scenario, if you're not careful, you become average. But who wants to get to the end of their life having just been average? Worst case scenario, you wake up one morning and you've become someone you don't even recognize in the mirror. It's the little daily choices that define who we become and determine the direction of our lives. So these are the rules that help me move in a direction I want instead of just in the default direction of the world. These rules bring order to the chaos in my mind. They keep me from being hurried in the hustle and bustle of our hurried culture, and they make sure that I can get up every morning and say, I'm proud of the person I'm becoming. So, like I said, all of that is packaged into 115 pages. Like I said, the book isn't that long, and the audiobook isn't even 2 hours long. So, moving forward again, 10 years in under 2 hours, highlight reel. But my life hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. So, like I said, I originally met my wife in our undergraduate program. We dated for 9 months, got engaged, and my haphazard living caught up with me because 6 months before our wedding, she called off our first engagement. Immediately after that, I was living in Indiana, working an internship that was sure to lead to my dream job. Well, my haphazard living caught up with me there too, because I made some poor decisions and I got fired. So I lost my girl, I lost my job, but something I'll never forget, and one of the underlying experiences that shaped my life from haphazard living into intentional living, was the conversation I had with my former boss as he escorted me out of the building. We were on our way out, and he stopped in the lobby. He turned to me, and he said, Jason, good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from bad decisions. So learn from this bad decision, and never let it happen again. And I learned, and it never happened again. And that has set me up for success beyond anything I ever could have imagined. I mean, seriously, if you had stopped me in the parking lot after losing this job and said, hey, I know this sucks, but don't worry, you're gonna grow from this. You'll graduate college, move to Atlanta, get married, have a stroke, change careers, write a book. Like, honestly, I would have asked you about whatever substance you were on because it must have been really good stuff. But all of that stuff followed a decision to get serious about the direction of my life, to learn from my bad decisions, to learn from the things I had experienced, and do everything I could to turn bad decisions into good decisions. I decided I wanted to start living intentionally, and since then, I picked up little pieces of wisdom and reapplied old pieces of wisdom and landed on this. Rules for my life, rules and principles that help me make a decision when I'm faced with a choice. Rules and principles that lead to a life that is filled with more peace and less stress, more of what I want and less of what I don't. And rules for my life, because this book is about what works for me. I don't claim to have the solution for everyone. Your results may vary. But within this book, you'll find an example of what intentional living looks like and what your life could look like by deciding to live intentionally. And then you get to go decide what works for you. So you should care because yes, while intentional living has its challenges and it can be a lot of work, the reality is that you already have a set of rules that you live by, whether you consciously acknowledge them or not. You already have a decision-making framework for how you spend your money, what you do with your free time, how you interact with other people, or how you show up at work. Everyone has a method to their madness, and my question to you is, who is it that told you how you're going to live? Who is it that told you how to show up in the world? Are you just doing what your family told you to do? Are you just doing what your friends want you to do? Are you just living the way society tells you? Now, I get really passionate about this topic, obviously passionate enough to write a book about it. So, to show you why this matters, I'm going to use an illustration from the world of math and investing. My undergraduate major is in computer science and I minored in math, so what else do you expect? Let's take two people, Sam and Riley. Sam got intentional with her money early on, choosing to invest $2,000 per year starting at age 20. Riley, on the other hand, lives a little bit more haphazardly And he decided to put off intentionality until later in his life because he wants to have fun and enjoy life in his 20s. So he doesn't start investing until age 35. They both decide to invest in the S&P 500, which historically has averaged a 30-year annualized rate of return of 10 to 12%, but we'll just say 10% to be a little bit more conservative. The breakdown of their total contributions and their total balances over the course of their lives. Now, notice how by age 35, when Riley is just getting started, Sam has already contributed $30,000 for a total balance of $63,545. 10 years after that, age 45, Sam has $196,000 compared to Riley's $31,000. 10 years after that, age 55, we see Sam's $542,000, almost 5 times more than Riley's $114,000. 10 years after that, age 65, age 75, it isn't even close. And this is just what happens. Think about what intentionality could do for how you spend time. Think about what this could mean for your relationships. Think about what this could do for your life. The point is, intentional choices early on lead to have compounding effects for years to come. Now, I have heard from some of the readers older than me, I wish I would have heard this 20 years ago because it would have changed a lot about how my life. It's a little late for me now. Now, if we think about the investment example that I just showed you, yes, I will admit that earlier choices have larger impacts, but it is never too late to start living intentionally. There's an old saying that goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is now. So whether you're 22 or 72, we're all in the same boat. We all have life left to live, and we get to decide what that looks like. Until our final breath, we have a future ahead of us. So for those of us who are younger, we have plenty of time to build a life we love. And for those who are older, you have far more experience and resources to draw from to ensure that your remaining years are your best years. And here comes the but. Young or old, it's not going to be easy, and it won't just happen on its own. If you want to live intentionally, you'll probably have to spend some time thinking about what your life currently looks like and where you're headed. And you'll have to think about where you want to be, what you want your life to look like. Because if where you're headed doesn't align with where you want to be, you might have to make some changes. You'll probably have to approach your free time a little differently. You might not get to spend your money the way you used to. You'll probably have to interact with your family, friends, and romantic partner a little differently. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Changing all of that stuff is really tough, especially if we're fighting against patterns that have been reinforced for years. Intentional living is a lot of work, and it costs something. But haphazard living also costs something. In my case, haphazard living cost me my relationship and my dream job. But intentional living is what got me to the point of having a healthy marriage, got me to grad school, and got me to this very presentation. Intentional living takes more energy up front, but haphazard living always catches up to you down the line. So what it really comes down to is this. Would you rather pay now or later? So I hope I've illustrated the benefits, and I've also shown you the costs. So what's at stake? Well, in our investment example, the difference between intentional and haphazard was $3 million. Literally $3 million. That is a lot of money. But stepping out of the financial realm, in the counseling program, our professors are constantly encouraging us to do our own internal work. Why? Because we need to do our work so that we can help others do their work. We need to heal so that we can help others find healing. Here's the truth. Intentional counselors are better counselors. They remain present with the client instead of suffering the effects of burnout. They can genuinely model what they're teaching the client, and they give clients tools that work long after therapy ends. And for any academic support staff in the room, the same thing applies to your work with students. When you live intentionally, you model the very success and self-awareness you hope your students will develop. But let's make this a little bit more personal. I'm going to put up a group of words that describe how some people find themselves in their relationships. Let's start with haphazard living. As you look at these words, go ahead and shout out a word or phrase that strikes you as living haphazardly. Avoidant. Unreliable. Reactive. Good. All right, And let's think about intentional living. Go ahead and shout out a word or phrase that strikes you as living intentionally. Patient, present, considerate. Yeah. So if I were to categorize these words into, it might look something like this. If we had more of this in the world, just think of what a difference that would make in our families, our communities, and in our country. Just think of what a difference more of this would make in our world. I mean, if our politicians were more like this, oh man, if our neighbors were more like this, if our bosses or coworkers were more of this, if our family, our friends were more like this, could you imagine what kind of world we would live in? I think this is important because this is the kind of person you hope your leaders are. If you're a client, this is the kind of person you hope your counselor is. If you're a student, this is the kind of person you hope your academic advisor is. And if you're getting surgery, this is really the kind of person you hope your surgeon is. But even deeper than that, this is the kind of person you want to work for. This is the kind of person you want to be married to. This is the kind of person you hope your kids grow up to be. But wait a minute. Aren't you somebody's counselor? Aren't you somebody's academic advisor? Aren't you somebody's boss or coworker or spouse or parent? So if you're hoping they're like this, doesn't that mean somebody's hoping you're like this? And not just hoping, they're counting on you to be this. But just to drive this home, there's one person who's been counting on you and who's going to count on you for your entire life. There's one person that no matter what you do or don't do, every word you say, every action you take, it impacts them. Can anyone guess who I'm talking about? That's right. How many times do we look in the mirror and we just see too much of this? Wouldn't you like to see more of this? I think this is important because not only are your family and friends and clients and students counting on you, I think this is important because you are counting on you. So bringing it back to the question, why should you all care about intentionality? Well, without intentionality, how can we expect to take care of ourselves without a plan or purpose, let alone those who are counting on us for guidance and support? Without intentionality, how can I expect to take care of her? Or them? Or them? How can I expect to take care of him? Or him? Or him? You should care about intentionality because it helps us show up for our clients and for our students. You should care about intentionality because it guides how we spend our money, our time, and other valuable resources. It helps us be the best version of ourselves for our family, our friends, and for ourselves. I mean, could you imagine what a difference more of this could make in your life? You should care about intentionality because it's going to help you get the life you've always wanted, a life you've dreamed of, a life you love. And that's why I wrote this book. Everyone lives by a set of rules, a way of making decisions. Did you choose them for yourself, or are you doing what someone else has told you to do? Thank you. All right. Do we have any questions at all about the book, about the presentation, about anything at all? For those of you on Zoom, feel free to leave your questions in the chat and I'll see them. Ah, the 2-minute rule. Yeah, that is under rules for work. That's one of the first rules I talk about in the book. So the 2-minute rule is actually quite simple. It's probably one of the simplest rules in this book. Essentially, if any task at all takes 2 minutes or less, Do it right then, right when you think of it. Don't put it off. And that's because I have run into far too many times where I have things in my office or things around the house or just little like, I got to send this email and got to take care of this thing. And it won't really take that long, but I decide to put it off. And then after a week or a month of all of that stuff, things pile up in the house. Replies need to be sent in my email. And so I just get so frustrated with all the clutter around the house and around my digital workspace and things like that. So I got this rule so that I would eliminate all of that clutter, especially for all the easy things that you can just take care of right then and there. Any other questions? Let's see. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So how do I remind myself to remain intentional when life happens? Well, over time, as I've practiced this, there have become it's easier to remind myself. There are little cues that I kind of pick up on and remind myself to return to some of these rules. And so for the rule that you're mentioning is I only speak when I can be heard. And so when I'm driving in a car and somebody cuts me off, I want to yell at them. They can't hear me, so that's not going to do any good. Even if they could hear me, if I just get angry at them, they're not going to change their behavior, so why bother? So sometimes I do say like, okay, why'd you do that? And then I remind myself, Jason, they can't hear you. So I'll just keep that one to myself. When I started out trying to, I think when I started really implementing my first couple rules, I'd have to write them down. I'd write them on sticky notes, put them on my desk, and then I'd see them occasionally. And then maybe throughout the day, let's say, so I've got it written on my desk, on a sticky note on my desk, and then I go into the kitchen to make coffee. And that might be an area where slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Try to slow down more so that I stop messing things up around the kitchen. And so maybe I would see it on my desk before I get up and go to the kitchen, and then I'm doing things quickly. I'm spilling coffee beans on the floor, things like that. And I have to remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Okay, so just slow it down and get it done right. So when I started, it was a lot of like, I would see them and then there'd be easy reminders. And then as I've been living with them for a couple of years now, then they just kind of come in when I need them. Brooke. Mm. Yes, that is how it often comes up. Not every time, though, especially the rules for relationships, those ones when it just influences how I interact with other people. I would say rules for relationships and rules for my soul, those are things that really shape who I am. And so I've adopted them as identities or identity aspects, if you want to think about it that way, to where they just become the thing I do. So if my wife and I are having a difficult conversation, then I often go to like invitations, not accusations. I lead with I statements. I ask for her perspective before I start just going off on her or whatever. And that just becomes the norm over time. But yeah, yes, exactly. There was a couple oil changes. I do my own oil changes. A couple oil changes ago, I was doing the whole thing, did the whole thing almost flawlessly. And I was pouring the used oil back in the new oil container so that I could then bring it to the hazardous waste material facility. And I was like, all right, be patient, be slow, do this thing, make sure you don't spill any yourself. And then I try to go too fast. I like lose my footing and oil right down my favorite jeans too. So that's my mistake for wearing my favorite jeans when I'm changing oil. But it's when you have enough of those moments, it's like, okay, I need to slow down. I need to start thinking of things more proactively. I need to stop just like rushing and trying to live haphazardly. I need to actually think of these things ahead of time. Oh, this, yes. Okay, so on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. That's where I post a lot of things. That's where I'm building my brand. So on Instagram, my handle is rightbraindev. On Twitter or X, my handle is also rightbraindev. I'm more active on Instagram than Twitter, but you can follow me on both. And I try to keep up on things there. Let's see, we've got a question in the chat. All right, Lily says, what an amazing and inspiring life story. Great job, Jason. Thank you, Lily. After being in classes with you for 2 years, I had no idea. It really goes to show that you never know what's going on in someone's life. I do not have any questions. Thank you for sharing your book and this experience with all of us. Congratulations. Thank you, Lily. That means a lot. I've been noticing over the last 6 months to a year or so, I've been getting more comments like that, which really resonate with me and really mean a lot, because if you had known me back in high school, back in early college, the guy who got fired from his internship, if you had known that, Jason, you wouldn't be saying any of these things about him. And I think that's the difference that intentional living can make. If you were to ask my closest friends, my wife has been through it with me for all of it. So you can ask her, but if you were to ask my closest friends now, they would describe somebody very different than how my high school classmates would have described me. And so this is real, this works. The best success story of my book or of my brand or the intentional living message I'm trying to convey is myself. I'm the best case study I've got. And so that's why I share my story. And I appreciate you guys listening to it. Yeah. Oh, how can we apply this in counseling with clients? I would say a lot of, well, just for starters, don't forget to remember, or maybe the 2-minute rule. Either of those could maybe apply with your notes, depending on if you want to do notes. That's an often, it's like, oh, I don't want to do notes after the end of the session, but don't forget to remember how good it feels to be caught up on my notes when I go home for the day. That's a good reminder. Rules for relationships, get curious. I think that's one of our best superpowers as counselors. We can get curious and ask the client about their situation, because no two people, though they might come from similar backgrounds or similar demographics, they don't have the same story. So we ask them questions about their particular experience. And rules for my soul, I rely on these just to keep myself sane, which can be a difficult thing in the counseling field. The counseling field has high rates of burnout, and we're trying to minimize that by engaging in more self-care, encouraging more self-care. And so the rules for my soul, like I said, it makes it more pleasant for me to live with me, and I can't live with myself if I'm constantly like overworked and overstressed and not getting enough sleep and just burdened and all that stuff. And then I just can't show up for my clients. So I think hopefully as you read this book, you'll get a lot of good ideas and inspiration for what would work for you. But ultimately, this book is just, here's what works for me. To take it as an example, as the foundation for figuring out what works for you. It's kind of like Pinterest. People go on Pinterest to find inspiration for what they can do in their own life. That's what this book is. Ooh. Yes. Yeah, borrowing a roadmap. That's one of the rules for my soul, because that's just a way I want to live. I recognize that it's not very common, apparently, to seek out advice or to seek out somebody's help when you don't know what you're doing, which really shocks me. But that's probably because when I was 16, and I tell this story in the book, when I was 16, my mom forced me to go see our neighbor, an older gentleman in our church, and he mentored me for the next 2.5 years, and he changed my life. He's in the dedication page at the start. He's in the acknowledgments in this book because he changed who I am. And I think that experience set the course for my life of when there's something I don't know what to do, or I just acknowledge that, for example, counseling, I don't really know what I'm doing, but there are people who do know, and so I should go talk to them and see what they think and see what works for them and what doesn't work for them and all of that stuff. So overall inspiration, my mentors, Mark, I just mentioned, my current mentor, Matt. My parents have been inspiring to me. My wife has also been inspiring to me. Professors, bosses, coworkers, like I just, in that borrower roadmap chapter, I guess you could call them, I talk about how you can pick up wisdom, you can learn lessons anywhere if you've got your eyes open and your ears open. And so that's what I do. That's how I live my life. I go through my day and just like from a lyric of a song, just a throwaway phrase on a podcast that somebody mentions, I listen for it and it resonates with me, then I write it down. And then I go, maybe I think about it some more later, or maybe I journal about it, or I just think about how does this apply to my daily life? How can this change the way I live today? Everything is inspiration, I suppose. All right. If anybody is wondering, I know there have been a couple questions from some of my classmates on how to publish a book because they want to publish a book. Well, my path is probably it is a lot easier than some people because my wife was my editor and my publisher and everything there. She knew how to do all this stuff, self-publish a book through Amazon. And so that's what we did. So we should hire Bree. Yes. Yes. My wife is open for, she does all that stuff on the side as a freelancer. And so, yes, she can for hire. All right. Well, if nobody has any other questions, then we'll, one more question. Technically, yes, this is my second book. That will be probably at this point, I just had another idea for a book yesterday. I like that idea a lot. So that will probably be book 2. The first book I mentioned will probably end up being book 3, but book 2 and 3 kind of go hand in hand. So they might be coming out together. So there you go. Otherwise, I have ideas like that frequently and I write them down and some of them are winners and some of them are not. So we keep the not winners tucked away a little bit just for me to think about and consider. And then maybe the winners will someday see the light of day, just like this one.